Hello, everybody. This is Lisa Nehring from Life Skills 101, Life Skills for a Digital Age. And I am so excited to be talking to you today on the podcast. We are going to be talking about seasons today, and you'll find out in just a minute why. That's the theme of this week's podcast. But imagine your life as a year. It's divided into four distinct seasons: summer, spring, autumn, winter, and each season brings its own unique qualifications and experiences. So, spring is the season of new beginnings. I personally love spring. I live in the far north, so winters are long and hard here. And when spring hits, it's like nature awakens with fresh blossoms, vibrant colors. The brown goes away, the ice and snow goes away, and it's a period of growth, renewal, and possibilities, right? And then summer hits. I love summer too because it's warm outside and the bees are buzzing and the birds are chirping. Our dogs love to go on long walks in the summer, and we experience warmth and abundance. And this season is characterized by productivity, energy, and the enjoyment of hard work. We love to garden, so we're outside quite a bit. And it's a time to bask in the glow of our achievements from the school year, right? And hard work that we might have done in our vocational jobs. And we make the most of the long, bright days and honestly, the beautiful evenings. We had a trampoline set up for years in our backyard where we would just lay out on the trampoline and do stargazing and actually read stories on the tramp and the whole bit. Autumn comes. I personally love autumn too. And it's a time of change and reflection. We have prepared for autumn quite a bit. And as the leaves change color and fall comes on, we might find ourselves transitioning into new phases. Now, in the far north, that means pulling out the winter boots, the winter gear, and weatherproofing the house, turning on the heater. And it's a period to harvest the fruits of our labor, assess our progress, and prepare for what's next. And then finally, winter comes. Winter represents a time of rest and introspection, and the cold and darkness might bring challenges, but it's also a chance to slow down, reflect, and plan for the future. Even though I don't really personally love the cold and ice, one of the things I loved about homeschooling in the winter was those long winter evenings where we would be just reading and talking and discussing, pulling out maps, lingering over the dinner table, chatting about history, whatever. Such great memories. And winter is a season for conserving energy and preparing for the cycle to begin anew, right? So, we're going to talk about seasons in the homeschool world, right? So, understanding that life is seasonal. This is one of the things I say to my kids all the time. Life is seasonal. Whatever's going in this season will change at some point sooner than later, right? But understanding that life is seasonal allows us to be flexible, to be adaptable, and to make the most of each phase. If you've listened to Life Skills 101 for any length of time, you know that the whole point of this podcast started, I think, 4 or 5 years ago with this idea of talking about soft skills. And one of the soft skills that we talked about was adaptability and flexibility, and what an important soft skill or life skill, interpersonal skill that is. When you're able to be adaptable and flexible to pivot and change, things like COVID, things like 2020 aren't going to knock you on your tail because you're going to be able to like go, okay, what's next? Things are figure outable, right? So I want to talk about how to embrace and thrive in every season that we're in, both in life and in homeschooling. First of all, recognize the season that you're in. This is such an important skill. When you have a bunch of littles at home, your life is going to look very different than when you have middle schoolers or high schoolers or even college age kids or your grandma, grandpa, right? So seasons change what you're doing, what you're investing in, how you spend your time, how you relax, all those things. I know when my kids were little, and again, our kids were 3.5 to 5 years apart in age, every one of them. So we had a space between every kid. I didn't have a whole bunch of preschoolers at one time, but for many years, I always had a preschooler. I always had a early elementary kid or a toddler at the same time, right? So those days were kind of exhausting physically. And when my kids took naps, I often took naps too. As your kids get older, it's not so physically exhausting. It's more mentally and emotionally exhausting, if you will, because you're just putting all this emotional energy into persuading, training, maybe arguing, right? Let's be honest. And so recognizing the season that you're in can really help you just understand the tools and tips and tricks that you need to get through the season. Now, if you're in a period of growth, like starting a new curriculum or starting a kiddo in homeschooling or teaching a kid to read, productivity might be a little bit different than if you're in a period of maintaining, right? So if you're just teaching a kiddo to read, that's going to look really different than a kiddo who has literacy skills and they know how to read to themselves and out loud, but they're just honing those skills, right? So if you're in a period of growth, you've got to give yourself the time and space and your kids the time and space to go on a learning curve. And a learning curve is a lot of starts and stops. There's failure involved. That's what a learning curve is you're starting, you don't get it, you have to figure it out, you have to stop, you have to pause, you have to try again, you have to fail forward. So that's going to be a little bit different than if you're transitioning, like you're switching curriculum, you're adjusting methods, or you're going from one grade level to another, or you're going from public to private or to homeschool, or you started a new activity, or your kids are getting really into sports and decide that they want to do NCAA or whatever. But transitions are also a different season. Rest, holiday breaks, summer, also a different season. Now, a lot of us might look at rest and breaks like, oh, finally, we made it to the break. But for kids who are on the spectrum or who have a high need for structure, ADD kids are in this camp too. Holiday breaks and summer without a lot of structure might be even more stressful to them than having a very clear schedule. So you want to take that into account too. So recognize the season you're in. There's so many seasons that we could be in, right? And acknowledge the season helps you set expectations and goals for yourself and for your kids and your family. And then adjust your approach based on the season that you're in. Just like we wouldn't wear a summer coat, winter coat in summer, most of us wouldn't. We need to adjust our mindset and actions to fit our current season, right? In homeschooling, that can mean we embrace the excitement and new beginnings of a new academic year or a new program or curriculum. It might be maintaining our focus and productivity, even when it's doldrums kind of season in the homeschool world. I don't mind the fall, even leading up to Christmas, because you've got the holidays, we always practice Sukkot and then Thanksgiving and then Christmas. And those holidays around in the winter, from fall moving into winter, are just so joyous. And we've got lights everywhere. And I love that. But the real doldrums in my world as a homeschooler was always like the end of January after all the Christmas stuff comes down and middle of February, even into late February, when you're just in the hard dead of winter and things are dark and dreary. Now, you might live in a totally different climate than I do, so it might not be that way for you. But whatever time of year is the doldrums for you as a homeschooler, get a grip on what that is so that you can recognize, okay, I don't hate homeschooling. It's just the lights are dimmer. People are tireder. Everybody's tired of the curriculum. We've been indoors too much. And we always set aside some money and we purposely purchased some new activities or games or curriculum for late January, early February because of that very thing. Get a swim pass during February, whatever you need to do, just adjust and adapt your approach based on the seasons that you're in. It might be meaning that you make transitions and assessments in the spring. I think really a great way to wrap up your school year is to do an after action on what worked in your homeschooling for that year, what didn't, what worked for specific kids, what didn't work for specific kids. And I would assess curriculum activities. Did they start? Did they start out and make progression through the year so that at the end of the year you can look back and say, oh my gosh, they're reading so much better, or they're ready for algebra now, or they actually passed that swimming level. Just you're going to need to assess your kids, because if you don't, you're not going to know if you're making progress, and they're not going to know either. So adapt your approach to whatever transition or season that you're in, and then just adjust as you need it. You can be flexible when you need to be, but again, keep track of what your kids need to, because again, sometimes those rests and holiday breaks can be stressful to certain types of kids and learners. Appreciate the present. I know different personalities really struggle with this. I might be one of them, but each season of life and homeschooling, it literally does have its own beauty and purpose. And I think if we just take a pause and realize, okay, we're doing a start. Whenever you start your school year, in the fall. And so this means new curriculum. It means a new opportunities. And I find that time very exciting. Now, when you get into it and you're making progress, or maybe you're not, it can feel really frustrating, right? Maybe you don't have achievements to celebrate at the end of that semester or whatever, but really just being present with your kids and what they're struggling with and what they're really thriving with can be really a great way to homeschool, right? When we're always looking to what's next, or we're looking back with regret, that really robs us from what's happening right now. We can enjoy the fresh starts of the fall semester, the steady progress, the same for winter and summer too, because there's always going to be transformations as we grow with our kids, right? And finding gratitude in the present moment can make even the toughest seasons more manageable. And so I would just encourage you to really try to practice gratitude with your family. One of the things that we did for years with our kids, we had 5 kids, again, 3.5 to 5 years apart in age, each one of them. And so we had a toddler through college kid at one point. And what we would do is we would go around the room and we would pick one person and we would say the things that we loved and appreciated about them to them. And so that might seem a little bit cheesy, but we really wanted to pause because, parenting can be hard and managing siblings can be hard. I mean, it's an amazing adventure. Homeschooling is a fantastic way to raise your family. But let's be honest, it's work, it's a job, and it can be challenging. It's a challenging adventure, right? So just pausing and taking time to really say, hey, we love this person because, they make the best cinnamon buns, or they cleaned out the animal cage for me when I didn't ask them to, or they read me a story. Whatever it is, just take time to appreciate the present and appreciate each other. And then again, back to realizing that all seasons are cyclical and change is inevitable. Prepare for the change. And you can use stable periods to prepare for the next phase. Or if you know that a phase is coming, like winter's coming, so we're going to need winter gear, just plan that into your day, your life, your week, however it works for you. Set aside resources and plans for upcoming spring evaluations, for instance, and adjustments. Make adjustments in your schedule ahead of time so it doesn't feel like you're skipping or missing out on work. I really like open and go curriculum for this very reason because we had a larger family. We lived out of town. We lived on an acreage for many, many years, and our kids were involved in a lot of activities. So open and go to me just made the most sense. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare. I worked outside of the home vocationally for a third of the time that of the 30 years that we homeschooled. So open and go meant we could loop whatever we were doing and we weren't missing out and we weren't behind. And we were fine doing school in the summer too. We actually enjoyed getting together and talking about big ideas. We read the Epic of Gilgamesh one summer and Beowulf while we were gardening. And so I like that kind of loop schedule because for me, it took some of the pressure off to always feeling like, oh my gosh, we're behind on this. We got to catch up. And I really hated that feeling. So, whatever is going to work for you, work it. It's homeschooling. You have so much freedom. You can create the lifestyle that works best for you. And moms, you're the ones probably doing the homeschooling in your home. If there's dads listening, I appreciate you too. And this is for you as well. But it's great to consider your kids as you homeschool. Obviously, that's one of the beauties of homeschooling is we get to personalize homeschooling for our children. However, don't neglect who you are. What kind of teacher are you? What kind of learner are you? If you are buying all the curriculum for your kids and you're going to be teaching it or you're going to be facilitating or mentoring their progress, it has to be something that you can relate to, that you want to pick up. If it's totally against how you learn and what's going to work for you, it's going to sit on the shelf and it's going to be a year-long guilt trip sitting there calling to you saying, why didn't you open me? So be really aware of who you are as an educator and as a homeschool mom. Like I said, I liked open and go curriculum because I liked to loop it. I knew if I had a really strict schedule kind of curriculum, it wasn't going to happen for me. I had too many things going on, and so it just wasn't going to work. The other thing I did is I didn't overbuy, and the reason for that has to do with me. My sister-in-law is one of the most organized people I know, and I was at her house this summer, and her garage is a 3-car garage, and about a third of it has shelves in it, like a library, and they're packed. Well, her husband was looking for something and she said, third shelf down on the right, second row in, and it's the second thing from the middle to back. Like she knew exactly where it was. She knew everything. She knows everything in her garage. She knows exactly where it is. Not me. If I don't see it, I forget it exists. So I did not buy a lot of stuff for many years because really for a very long time because if I don't see it, I forget we own it. And I have 5 kids, which means a lot of curriculum right off the bat. We picked an alpha phonics program for phonics decades ago. It was a phenomenal phonics program. I never looked at any other phonics program. I didn't consider any other ones. We found one that worked. It worked for all 5 of our kids, all very different learners, all with gifts and strengths that are radically different from the other one because that's how families go, right? And I stuck with that. Now, if that's not you, if you like every new shiny object, great. But I will tell you, and we did product and curriculum reviews for a long time. I've done hundreds and hundreds of them. So we had at a certain point, we had a lot of curriculum coming through our home that we would test and then we would do reviews on, and I would gift it or sell it or whatever. So if that works for you during different seasons, great. But if it doesn't, don't feel bad about that. Just decide who you are, understand yourself, and make your homeschooling work for you as well as your kids. Because listen, if it doesn't work for you, the homeschool parent, it's probably not going to work for your kids, right? So you got to prepare for change, and just realize that when winter's coming, you got to get ready for it, right? And just like I said in February, we already always set aside a little bit of money for a new curriculum or a game or something special, because it was the winter doldrums. Figure out what seasons you need a little extra help and support in, and figure out how you're going to get that for yourself. Because listen, this is about resourcing our families, and that includes us. And I think a lot of times as homeschool parents, we forget that we need to make sure that we have our oxygen mask on first so that we can actually provide an educational environment for our kids. And I don't think that that is overstated or dramatic. Homeschooling is a job, and educating our kids is serious and actually beautiful work. But we have to take it seriously to get it done well and to keep ourselves standing in the midst of all of that, right? And then that's a great segue into this. Seek support. You're not alone in your journey. You don't have to homeschool it alone. I know homeschoolers, a lot of us are very much do it yourselves. We're the DIY poster children, right? But feel free to reach out to friends, family, fellow homeschooling parents, and mentors who can offer you support and perspective. There's more than ever before. And really, don't just reach out to them when things are going well or you have a curriculum question. Reach out when things are really challenging. Reach out when you're like, I don't know if I like this kid. I've worked all year on doing long division. My kid still doesn't get it. Like we both cry every day. Reach out and let them know what are the challenges that you're struggling with. Because listen, last year at True North Homeschool Academy, 2 teachers came to me individually about one particular student, and they didn't know that the other teacher had come to me. We all got together and brainstormed, and one of the teachers went to the parent, and the parent had the child tested for disabilities. And guess what? Profoundly dyslexic. And this student was in 10th grade. So this, God bless this kid. He had soldiered on. The mom had too. They'd had struggles. They'd wrestled. They'd cried, but they had just kept at it. And when they got this diagnosis, it was such a relief to them because their struggles now made sense. They had a name to the struggle, right? And so now they can get the resources that they need so that they don't have to wrestle against each other. They can actually pay attention to this identified named challenge and overcome it. And that is the beauty of having a support system. When you outsource to a program like True North Homeschool Academy, you're really gathering support to you and to your family, and you're getting different perspectives. Now, we don't just tell everybody willy-nilly, hey, your kid has a learning disability. No, no, no. We don't like labeling kids in this way. We want to make sure that the families are resourced. So I just want to put that into context. But realize when you're joining a homeschooling community or co-op, they can provide invaluable resources and camaraderie. One of the easiest, most simple ways to find out what's happening in your region and your area is just get on Facebook and look for a regional support group in homeschooling, or go to your state homeschooling organization, and you're going to find a ton of resources right there. You can also just call friends that you know, maybe they know somebody around the world. Like that's happened to us several times. People have said, "Hey, do you know this person?" And actually, we know somebody who knows them. So just call the people that you know. Um, Listen, life is seasonal and it goes by fast. So enjoy the season that you're in, and make sure that you get the resources that you need to really enjoy the season that you're in. Because you know the days are short and the year, or how does it go? The years are long and the days are long and the years are short. I think that's really a truism. I mean, you're so busy with homeschooling, and all of a sudden you wake up one day and look around and you're like, where'd everybody go? And so you're so much in the thick of it. But it's again, it's a beautiful, beautiful way to raise your family and a great way to educate your kids. So I'm all about it. And listen, we're here for you as you're homeschooling. Now, as we come to the end of this episode, I want to let you know that this is the end of our journey together on the Life Skills 101 podcast. And honestly, I just want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in, and growing with us as we've talked about life skills and soft skills and how to home educate your kids. And it's been an incredible journey. I love Felice Gerwitz and I love the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network. Like truly, truly, Felice is such a professional and a beautiful woman of God. And I'm just so grateful to her. So stay tuned at the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network because there's so many great programs here. You're not going to want to miss those. But life skills will be ending at the end of this episode. Don't worry, though, it's not a goodbye. I'm excited to announce that we'll be continuing to podcast over at It's Not That Hard to Homeschool. And there we'll continue to explore the joys and challenges of homeschooling because there's both, right? It's a mixed bag and it's seasonal. And there we offer practical advice and support to empower you in your educational journey. So remember, just like life, our learning never truly ends. It just evolves into new and exciting seasons. And again, I'm so grateful to each and every one of you who have listened to the Life Skills 101 podcast and stayed tuned and stayed curious and listened in and sent in your comments. It's been such a joy and a pleasure. And I hope you join me over at It's Not That Hard to Homeschool. I will talk to you later. Until next time, take care and keep growing. Again, this is Lisa Nehring at Life Skills 101, Life Skills for a Digital Age.